What's happening? Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining me as always. It is much appreciated. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. You can do all of those things for absolutely free. And it all helps out this podcast. We'll get to the Celtics later on. I want to talk about the Celtics offense versus the Mavericks defense. But we begin with the Patriots and OTAs. Yesterday was the third viewing that the media has had of the Patriots OTAs. And there's been lots of talk about Drake Maye. We know that Gerard Mayo has discussed Maye with the media. We know Drake Maye has spoken to the media, Jacoby Brissett. But Alex Van Pelt met with the media yesterday to talk about the rookie quarterback. And he had a lot to say. First things first, AVP said that he's been impressive talking about Maye. Specifically, Van Pelt said that Maye has quickly adapted to the footwork changes that coaches have taught him, allowing him to play more in rhythm. Now, some might sit there and say, oh, Nick, come on. This is the offensive coordinator, third pick in the draft. What else is he supposed to say? Of course he's going to say that Drake Maye has been impressive. However, when you look at what the Patriots are actually doing, I tend to believe Van Pelt when he says this to the media. I don't think Van Pelt is just trying to throw stuff out there to make Maye look better to the fans than he actually is. And the reason why I say that is because the Patriots, through their actions, are telling us that Maye has been impressive, that he's picked up some things fundamentally. Now, I have not been paying too much attention on this podcast regarding the quarterback rotation and reps because it's really early. And we know that there's going to be ups and downs with Maye. But yesterday, there's Drake Maye right behind Jacoby Brissett and in front of Bailey Zappi. So there was a move. There was a move within the hierarchy of the Patriots quarterback room. The top two guys, as far as yesterday goes, Brissett and Maye. And here we have Van Pelt saying, yeah, the young man's been impressive. He's showing progression. The coaches are telling us, and on the field, he has earned more reps. He's earned that step up. So that's why I believe Van Pelt when he says that Drake Maye has been impressive. And not only that, I believe Van Pelt because everybody will tell you that's been there. And I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get credentialed from my friend Greg Bedard. Hopefully I can get to mandatory minicamp at least once next week. But everybody that's been watching these practices, that have watched these three OTAs will tell you that Maye looks much more comfortable, that his footwork is much better, and he looks more in rhythm. So he's passing the eye test. The coaching staff is telling us that he's been impressive, and he's taken that next step in his progression by being right behind Jacoby Brissett as we get ready for mandatory minicamp next week. I thought it might take Maye until training camp to leapfrog Bailey Zappi. So to me, he's ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. And again, I always give you these caveats. I always give you the disclaimer. None of this that I'm saying right now is guaranteeing that Maye is going to be great in his rookie season. It doesn't even guarantee he's going to be great, period, end of sentence. All I'm telling you is what's happening right now. As I like to say, the snapshots. In the snapshot right now, when I'm talking about this on June 5th, this Wednesday, 2024, as of right now, Drake Maye is making progressions with his footwork, with his reads of the field, with his understanding of the playbook. And so far, he has impressed the coaching staff with how fast he's picking things up. And he has leapfrogged Zappi a little bit earlier than I anticipated. That's all I'm telling you. And I think Patriots fans, you should feel good about that. Because what's the other side of this, right? The other side of this is Maye would still be stuck behind Zappi. His footwork would still look clunky to those who are on the scene, paying close attention to these kinds of things. Van Pelt would not go out there and say that he's been impressive. He'd say, well, he's a third pick in the draft. He's a young guy. We're going through these things with, his transition from the college level to the NFL level, and he's doing a lot of things that he's never done before. And, we're going to be patient with him, and it's fine if he's number 3 right now. I don't think they would just go out there and throw a word like impressive in front of people's faces unless they really felt like Drake Maye has been impressive, relatively speaking, as to what you expected. What was the anticipation from the coaching staff? Gerard Mayo said yesterday that Maye is headed in the right direction. And that's what this is all about. It's not about being quarterback one in week one. It's not about being a Pro Bowler in year one or an all-pro in year one. It's about the steps of the process. Every step of the way so far, 30,000 feet, looking at it, Maye continues to progress and impress. And that should make you happy. I don't think coaches would, arbitrarily move him up to number 2. I don't think that would happen. They want him to earn it. They've preached before the draft, during the draft, after the draft, during this, OTA process, rookie minicamp. They have preached that they want their players to earn the titles. They want their players to earn the move up on the roster if that's what happens. And I don't think they're saying all of that just to throw it out there, right? So going out of his way yesterday to say Drake Maye has been impressive, that does mean something to me. It's not a guarantee, but it means something to me that fundamentally the young quarterback is taking steps forward. And in the big picture, he's moving in the right direction. All right, let's jump to a couple of super chats. JB Brown, $5 super chat. Thank you, JB. Of course, super chats get you to the front of the line with your comment or question. Also helps us financially here with the program, which I always appreciate. Hey, Nick, chatter about possible Judon trade feels like aggregated fluff, but is it a terrible idea? Maybe get assets for future for him now. It's interesting you bring this up, JB, and I know that you're actually a part of the Patreon family. I'm going to do a dive into the edge position during our exclusive content podcast today on that Patreon page. And I want to really break down the edges. So I don't want to ruin it for some of the Patreon members that pay the $5 a month for that exclusive content. I'm going to dive deeper into this later on today on that podcast. But what I will say is, I don't think the Patriots are in a position right now to trade Matthew Judon. Of course, it's all relative. What would you get in return for him? If we're talking about a second-round pick, then I would entertain the idea. I would think about it. But right now at the edge, Judon is your one solidified dude. And I think this team wants to compete. And they know that their way to compete against other teams, especially against this schedule, in this roll call of quarterbacks they're going to go against. I mean, this is like a murderer's row of QBs on this year's schedule. They know they need their defense to be good, if not really good, to compete. I don't think they expect their offense to be out-dueling Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow and all the other quarterbacks that they face this year. So if you move on from Judon, what do you do at edge? Is Anthony Jennings now getting 75, 80% of the snaps? Or are you putting a lot onto Keon White? Is Keon White ready to play the edge 60, 70% of the time? You're not going to ask Joshua Uche, I don't think, to play a ton of edge, 50, 60% of the time. He's a sub pass rusher, as we know. So they really don't have anybody to put in that spot for Judon. Judon's the one guy on the edge that can consistently make plays on first, second, and third down. So I would not expect a Judon trade at this point. I think if Judon was going to get traded, it would have happened during the weekend of the draft. Now, with that said, I also don't understand the tenor of the conversations. I know that Judon threw out the tweet a week or two ago, the Leonardo DiCaprio, I ain't going anywhere GIF. I know he threw that out there on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. So maybe he feels good about the direction of the talks. But if it gets ugly, if it's a situation where you feel like you have to move on from Judon, then that's a different situation. But if you're asking me if the option is he stays or he goes and you don't have to move him because things get ugly behind closed doors, I don't think you're in a position right now to make that move. I just don't think you are. Vitalix, $20 super chat. My goodness. Thank you. I appreciate the $20 super chat. How helpful do you think it is for rookie quarterbacks to practice against good top 5 to 10 defenses? Pat's defense being suffocating is going to help Maye in the long run along the lines of steel sharpens steel. Yeah, I buy that. Look, this defense last year, we've said it an awful lot on this podcast over the past few months, was number 9 in DVOA. So they were a top 10 defense in DVOA. And they have Gonzalez returning, Judon returning, Barmore, if he continues to take those steps forward and becomes, really a top 5 to 10 defensive lineman in the game on the interior. Yeah, all of those things help, right? If he's facing a defense that is just crap, then he's not going to be challenged as much. But if this defense is going full tilt and he's going against Christian Gonzalez and the Judons and the other guys on that side of the football day in and day out, yes, it should help him because he is facing in practice a top 10 defense. And if that defense is better this year than it was last year, it should help him even more because he's playing against a top 5 to 8 defense. So I absolutely buy into that theory, Vitalix. I do. I do think that iron sharpens iron. And I do believe when you have a top, 5 defense out there that you're facing every single day, it's going to make you better because it's not going to be easy to beat those guys. The coverage is going to be tight. The pass rush is going to be there. So I do agree with you on that. I think Drake Maye is getting a very fast lesson on how good NFL defenses can be by going against this Patriots defense. I 100% believe that. Again, appreciate the super chat. Can't say enough. $20 super chat from our friend Vitalix, who has been a consistent supporter of the program. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Takes a second. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the program out. I appreciate it every time you do that. All right, so we talked about Drake Maye at OTAs and his steady progression and Alex Van Pelt calling him impressive. The rest of OTAs, when you look at yesterday specifically in a vacuum, it was not a great day for Maye or really any of the quarterbacks. So we have to understand this. Again, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs. There are going to be OTAs. There are going to be practices where Maye struggles. It's going to happen. There are going to be practices that Brissett struggles. It's going to happen. As Vitalix just pointed out, this defense is pretty damn good. So we have to be ready for certain days that Maye looks like a rookie who's fighting it a little bit at certain times. We have to anticipate that. It doesn't mean that he's going to be a failure. It doesn't mean that in the big picture he's not getting better. But it's just in a vacuum, he's going to have these times. It's part of the process. And so Mike Reese wrote about Drake Maye's day yesterday at OTAs. He threw one red zone interception on a play in which he and Antonio Gibson appeared to have a miscommunication. Then he overthrew a pass to Juju Smith-Schuster that was easily intercepted. Maye later said there were a few throws he would have liked to have back and that he planned to learn from them. Mike Giardi writing on Drake Maye's OTA yesterday, the rookie first rounder rode the struggle bus on a day that featured heavy red zone work. It was rugged when the session's script turned from 7-on-7 to full team work. A few notes on these struggles because we have to keep all of these things in perspective, right? Number one, this wasn't all on Maye. It wasn't all on Brissett. The offensive line was jumbled yesterday. Michael Wenu was not there. Chuks Okorafor, not there. So your 2 starting offensive tackles, as of right now, if you played a game tomorrow, it'd be Okorafor on the left side. It'd be Wenu on the right side. Your 2 starting offensive tackles were not out there yesterday. That's obviously a problem. There's not many NFL teams that would look good during 11-on-11s if they were missing both of their starting tackles. So we have to put this with the right context when we discuss some of the issues that the offense had yesterday and some of the problems the passers had yesterday. Okorafor, Wenu out. Javon Baker was limited. So there goes one of your better receivers. Greg Bedard told me yesterday that Tyquan Thornton was doing work on a separate field, So he wasn't necessarily involved. So you're down Taekwon, you're down Javon. KJ Osborne had some issues with drops. So you have to look at the entire picture. And the entire picture tells us that the offensive line was jumbled up and you didn't have all of your receivers at your disposal. That's going to impact some things. And if you're concerned about Maye, then I would suggest just looking at Brissett. Brissett struggled as well. He wasn't very good. The defense is ahead of the offense. The defense is better than the offense. We know that. We know that in 2024, the Patriots defense is going to be better than its offense as long as it stays healthy. And if the offense ends up being better than the defense, then this team overall is going to be much better than we think. So the defense is more talented. The defense is ahead of the offense because, again, remember, the offense is learning everything. This is a new scheme, new coaching staff, a bunch of new talent. The defense, they brought everybody back outside of Mac Wilson. So the defense, everybody knows each other. DeMarcus Covington is just getting promoted. So he has a chemistry with all of these players and a connection. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that the defense is outplaying the offense during 11-on-11s. I would actually be concerned if the offense was putting work on the defense during these sessions. This is what it should look like. You're during OTAs with all of the new young quarterback. I mean, I'm not surprised by any of this, especially when you tell me the offensive line is missing their starting tackles and there were a couple of wide receivers out. Christian Gonzalez played more reps yesterday in OTAs, which again makes that defense better, right? That the defense is going to be better when Christian Gonzalez is out there. The dude is a future stud if he stays healthy. So Gonzalez amped it up a little bit yesterday. The defense amped it up a little bit yesterday. I would also remind people that, you're working in the red zone. It's a restricted area. It's always tougher and tighter in the red zone. So when you're going through some of these plays, the coverage is going to be more tight than at other times because you're in the red area. It's how these things work. Nelson Lloyd jumps in with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Nelson. Appreciate it. Quick question. Are you buying into Thornton and Juju's outstanding performance? I'm not buying into them just yet. I would like to, but I just don't know. I'm not there yet, Nelson. I'm not there yet. As a matter of fact, reports said yesterday, Juju had a pretty good day, and then what happens? At the end of the OTAs, he's limping around. And Phil Perry said it looked like a pretty good limp. So there you have it. I'm not writing him off completely, but it's just a reminder that what is said, by these players in late May, early June, as far as their health goes and how they feel, if they have a track record, they've got to get through June, July, and August. They've got to get to September. And until I see Juju get through September looking relatively healthy, I'm not buying. Now, do I think if Juju is, say, let's, target 85%, if Juju is at 85% this year, he's a legitimate NFL receiver. If Juju is healthy, I actually believe he could contribute to this team. But it's a big if. It's a big time if. He's not going to be the guy that was in Pittsburgh. He might not even be the guy that was in KC a couple of years ago. But an 85% Juju is an NFL wide receiver. He might be your fourth best option or fifth best option, but he can contribute. He can make some plays. But I've got to see him get to September healthy. And again, yesterday, he's limping around. Doesn't make you feel great. Not even, in mandatory minicamp just yet. And he's showing a limp. Thornton, same thing. I mean, Thornton, I have less belief in than Juju because at least I've seen Juju play multiple NFL seasons at a pretty high level. Thornton has not been able to stay healthy his entire career. I'm glad he tried to put some muscle on in his upper body, but until that guy gets to September, I'm not going to believe it. We've seen Thornton before have great days during camp. He's done that in his first year and his second year. His first year, a lot of people getting excited about him. He showed out at a pro day. It was exciting. And then he went down with the injury. Last year, he showed some signs. He showed some flashes, then went down again. So, no, I don't believe in either guy from a health standpoint. And when we talk about health and performance, I'm not there with Tyquan Thornton. He's going to go out there and show me. I mean, the biggest memory and impact from Thornton last year in my head was when he had the River Dance Michael Flatley freaking route that he ran. When he's tap dancing at the top of his route. He's doing the Cupid shuffle at the top of his route. That's the memory that is burned into my brain from last year with Thornton, is that terrible ass route he ran. That's the first thing I think of when people ask me about Tyquan Thornton now. The Cupid shuffle. So no, I'm not believing in it just yet, okay? Receivers should look better at OTAs when they got, shorts and T-shirts on and just rocking shells. See how these guys look when they get the pads on. We got mandatory minicamp next week. Then we've got training camp coming up in July. So we'll see how it all works at that point. I'm not jumping to these grand conclusions about either of those guys. Just not. All right. Couple more thoughts, but first, before I get to those, I remind you, this podcast is brought to you by my friend Jeff at Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. He and his business partner have run this place for a long time in North Kingston. I went out last weekend with Kelly. Fantastic spot. More than 30 acres of land. Low-key, casual. They've got all these different setups for you. And if you're new to paintball or airsoft, they'll take care of you. Right? The games are structured in a way that if you're a beginner, you won't feel overwhelmed. They will embrace you. They will help you. They will teach you. And then they will let you go out into the wilderness. But Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, awesome place. You show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They will take care of the rest. Again, they're in North Kingston, Rhode Island, right by my old stomping grounds at URI. They're about, I'd say, 5-10 minutes away from URI, where I went to college. So they're there. They're there on the weekends. If you want to go do something cool, different with your friends, if you have maybe younger children and you want to set up a party, they do that as well. 401-228-6366 is the phone number. 401-228-6366. Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. I got to get to Celtics in a couple of minutes, but first, we do have to remind everybody that patience is a virtue with your young quarterback. And Alex Van Pelt said this about Drake Maye yesterday. Think of it as a marathon. You don't just go out there and run a marathon. You have to train properly. It's the same with a quarterback. There's a process. We follow that process. We trust that process. You can't just stick a guy out there and expect him to be successful without the proper training. We're making moves in the right direction. As far as a timetable, Van Pelt said there is no timetable. Jacoby is our starter, and he's playing excellent football for us in the spring. Drake is coming on. So until that changes, we're going to stick with what we got. We always talk about earning your reps around here. That's what I mentioned earlier, right? Earn the reps. We always talk about earning your reps around here. So as he continues to grow and have successful practices and start stacking those, then we can think about moving him up the depth chart. And yesterday, he was moved up. It's a process. It's a marathon. We're going to take our time and do it the right way. AVP also mentioned that Maye is being asked to do a lot that he did not do at North Carolina, which we always have to keep in mind. A lot of new going on with Drake. Other news and notes from OTAs. Kaden Wallace was at right tackle. Doesn't make sense to me. I understand that Michael Wenu was not there yesterday, but if you are moving Kaden Wallace to the left side, if you are committed to doing that, you drafted Kaden Wallace at the top of the 3rd round because you believed he could play left tackle. Wallace should be playing left tackle every single snap he's out there during this preseason, during this camp, during this mini camp, during OTAs. Every single solitary snap that Wallace takes should be at left tackle. I don't know why you're messing around with right tackle. I don't understand it. We know he can play right tackle. He played right tackle at Penn State. You're trying to transition him from the right to the left. Keep him on the left side. Every snap that he gets at right tackle is one less snap that he can get at left tackle as he tries to change things up. So I'm not a big fan at all of playing Kaden Wallace on the right side. Are you committed to him playing left tackle? Are you committed to this process to try to get him in a spot where you can believe he can play left tackle? If you are committed to that, and the Patriots, from Elliott Wolf to Gerard Mayo and others, they have said they want Wallace on the left side. They believe he can play the left side. Well, if you believe that and you are committed to it, then keep his ass on the left side. No right side crap going on. So I don't get that. Alex Austin looks good. From everybody that I read, everybody that I listen to, spoke to Greg yesterday, Alex Austin looks good. And so when you look at Alex Austin from last year when he first joined the team, we weren't really sure. Could he be an every week NFL guy, right? Is he a legitimate NFL player? He steadily grew throughout the year. And by the end of the season, he looked like somebody who would absolutely get a shot on this roster and a chance to move up the ladder at cornerback. So he comes back, and so far through OTAs, Austin has looked good. If Alex Austin can set that outside cornerback 2 spot, and you have Gonzalez and Austin, now, as we've talked about, you can move Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones around. You have that versatility. You don't have to bank on Jonathan Jones being your outside corner. In essence, Alex Austin becomes who you hoped Jack Jones would become. And as we know, Jack was not about the talent question. It was about all the other stuff. But if you somehow get out of Austin what you wanted out of Jack Jones, now you've got Jonathan maybe in the slot. You've got Jonathan maybe on the back end at free safety. So I think the progression of Alex Austin is very important. We got to keep an eye on it. Pop Douglas was good yesterday. He was really good in certain spots. I'm excited for Pop Douglas. He's a legit player. He's just got to stay healthy. But Pop looks good. Christian Barmore destroyed the offensive line yesterday. And that's good. And it's not good for the offensive line, but we have to keep it all in perspective, right? Like Barmore is going against David Andrews. David Andrews, as we know, legit center, one of the better centers in football. But, you know, he's also going against Michael Jordan, right guard, not offensive guard from the Chicago Bulls. Ha ha, pun, pun. He's going against Michael Jordan. You know, he's going against City So on the left side. So Barmore, we should want to see Barmore dominate some of these snaps because we expect him to be one of the best defensive linemen in football. He's at least a top 15 guy right now, if not top 10. So he should be doing that. Gerard Mayo was with Zoe and Beadle yesterday on 98.5 The Sports Hub. He said that left tackles working out of a sense of abundance, which means we're throwing a bunch of dudes out there at left tackle and hoping for the best. And he reiterated that Mike Owenu is the right tackle. Choo Choo jumps in. $2 super chat. Hello, Nick. Just here to support. Thank you, Choo Choo. You have continued to support the program throughout the last couple of months, I would say. You jumped aboard a couple of months ago, and I appreciate your support, you watching, listening, commenting, and also sending these super chats. So thank you, Choo Choo. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Doesn't cost you $1. Doesn't cost you even a penny. It just costs you a couple seconds of your time. If you do those 3 things, more eyeballs will see this podcast and hear this podcast, and I think that's a good thing. So continue to support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing, trying to get to 3,500 subscribers. It doesn't look like we're hitting that mandatory minicamp goal. Maybe we want to push it to like training camp, but we're trying to get to 3,500 during the summer months, which is difficult, but we're trying. Your help is all the help we need. Rate and review on Spotify and Apple Pods. And if you're new to Spotify, Apple Pods, don't forget you can float on over to the YouTube channel and just like the video, comment on the video, even subscribe to the YouTube. Doesn't mean you have to go watch YouTube. You can still listen on Spotify and Apple Pods. It would just help us continue to beat up that algorithm. So I appreciate every single one of you. All right, let's get to the Celtics offense. NBA Finals, Celtics offense against the Mavericks defense. We talked about the Celtics defense against the Mavericks offense yesterday. I have separated that part of the conversation yesterday on the YouTube channel. I created a Celtics podcast from that segment yesterday if you want to check it out. It's about 20 minutes long. Again, it's all about the C's defense against the Mavs offense. Now we look at the Celtics offense versus the Mavs defense. First and foremost, Kristaps Porzingis. His press conference yesterday. I don't know if it was gamesmanship. I don't know if Porzingis was being 100% honest. If Porzingis was being 100% honest, he ain't 100%. I don't know what percentage he is. But he's walking around with a kinesio tape on, and he seemed pretty unsure of himself as far as being 100%, being able to run, a full game, and if he's going to play. He even kind of, he said that's the plan. But if you're watching that press conference yesterday with Kristaps, I don't think you're super confident that he's 100%. And I don't think you can be confident in the idea that he's going to play much more than like 20 minutes a game. I've said, however, that if you do get an 80 to 85% Porzingis for 20 to 25 minutes a game, then that's a gigantic impact on this series and a tremendous help for the Celtics. But who knows? This might be a situation where Porzingis goes out there and tries to play, and after the first game, he says, nope, don't feel comfortable. So we got to keep an eye on it. I would not take it for granted whatsoever that he's available, quote unquote. That presser did not instill a lot of confidence. Hopefully it's gamesmanship, and he goes out there and looks like Kristaps in game 1 tomorrow night. All right. We begin with the Celtics offense here. It's a very simple idea, but a very important idea. Jason Tatum. If Tatum can shoot well in this series, the series is over. Simple as that. If Jason Tatum can be a more efficient offensive player in this series than he's been throughout this playoff run, the Celtics win the series. There's no doubt in my mind. Tatum has shot 44% from the field and 29% from three during this postseason. Before this postseason, Tatum shot 44% from the field. If you think that's a very low percentage, I would tell you that in postseason basketball, we've been through this a little bit on prior pods. Postseason basketball, much more difficult than regular season basketball. 7-game series, a lot of film being watched. Teams understand your tendencies, and they understand what they can do to make players, even the very best players, less effective at what they do. So 44%, yes, it's lower than you would hope if we're talking about regular season, even postseason. If he's shooting around 46, 47%, then you feel much better about it. But Tatum, before this postseason, was a 44% shooter from the field. This postseason, he's a 44.2% shooter from the field. The big difference with Tatum has been from three. That's the issue. Tatum needs to hit more threes. He needs to be more efficient from three-point land. More catch and shoot, less pull-up attempts. Tatum, again, this postseason is shooting 29% from three. Before this postseason, in his playoff career, Tatum shot 36% from three. That is a huge drop. There's a gigantic difference between 29% and 36% from three. If you get Tatum shooting around 35, 36% from three-point land in this series, Dallas is going to give up a ton of points. Ton of points. Michael Pina from The Ringer wrote about Tatum shooting. Several numbers from this playoff run aren't pretty. After making 43% of his spot-up threes during the regular season, Tatum's just at 27.6% in the playoffs. According to Synergy, Tatum's ISO plays that end in a shot, turnover, drawn foul, or pass that then leads to a shot, Boston generates only 0.86 points per possession. Those numbers are atrocious. 39.4% field goal effective percentage. Atrocious. And Pina writes that the film is a bunch of mid-range jumpers, step-back threes, and rush drives into the teeth of a set defense. Most of these plays begin after the defense switches a screen and gives Tatum the matchup he wants. Often in these playoffs, that hasn't mattered. So they're getting these switches, and thank you to Mark Barton for the super chat. I appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Thank you, Mark. So Tatum in ISO has been very inefficient during this playoff run. From three, he's been awful. So if he can play better in more efficient offensive basketball from a shooting standpoint, this series is going to look much different. Here's the good news. Pina writes, that doesn't mean that Tatum can't feast over the next couple of weeks. Pina writes, a lot of the shots Tatum gets are looks he converted quite comfortably this season. When he finds a zone, gets to his spot, and either rises unbothered over a smaller defender or overpowers him in the paint, Boston looks unbeatable. The shots just haven't fallen in this postseason like they have in the past. And this really highlights a point that I've made on Twitter. If you want to follow me, it's at Nick C Radio. This highlights a point that I've made throughout this playoff run. I don't think Tatum's looks have been as bad as people think that they've been. I don't think Tatum's shooting percentages are a direct correlation between the types of shots that he's taking consistently. Have there been games where Tatum settles? Absolutely. Have there been quarters where he settles? Absolutely. That happens. But I think overall, big picture, he's made the right play an awful lot in this postseason run. The shots just have not fallen. So Pina writes, last year, Tatum's effective field goal percentage as an isolation scorer was 59.6%. Again, compared to 39.4% in this playoff run. Tatum generated a whopping 121.5 points per 100 possessions on plays that included a pass. A hot streak from one of the game's most prolific scorers would doom Dallas. Absolutely. So Tatum is struggling shooting, but he's not necessarily struggling shooting because he's taking a bunch of terrible shots. He's missing shots that he usually makes for the most part. There are going to be some settled threes. There are going to be some shots that make you want to pull your hair out. But if the same shot profile that Tatum's had for the majority of this postseason run, if that same shot profile exists in this series and Tatum reverts back to what he's been for the most part, especially over the past couple of years, as a shooter, then Tatum's numbers should be much better. And if you think about Tatum, who is, averaging, I'd say, 25, 10, and 6 during this playoff run. He was 30, 10, and 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals. If Tatum could be more efficient against Dallas, we're talking about ridiculous numbers. It's an if. But if those shooting percentages go up and Tatum continues to play the way he's played in this postseason, we're going to see a monster finals from Jason Tatum. If the shooting numbers improve. If Tatum shoots well, the Mavericks have no answer. If they try to double Tatum, that opens up rotations on the Dallas defensive side, right? Because now you're playing 4-on-3. Same idea for the Celtics defense. If you double Luka, you're now allowing Luka to pick you apart 4-on-3. If Tatum is dominating 1-on-1 and if he's more efficient in isolation, the Mavericks, if they react by doubling Tatum, he's going to murder them. Because his playmaking is at a much higher level now than it's ever been. If they double Tatum, he's going to turn this series into a 4-on-3 for the Celtics. And the Mavericks do not have nearly enough defenders to allow that to happen. If the Mavs are stuck 4-on-3 against White, Holiday, Brown, and Porzingis, or Horford as that fourth guy, they don't have enough defenders to consistently stop those guys. So Dallas would not have any answers. They've got to hope that Tatum continues to shoot the way he has shot throughout this postseason run. They've got to hope that he settles for more shots and misses those shots. Because if you get an efficient Tatum with the shot profile that we've seen for the most of this run, Dallas has no answer. If you leave him 1-on-1, he's going to toast you if he's shooting well. If you try to overreact and give extra coverage towards him, he's going to kill you as a playmaker. It's pretty similar to the Luka stuff. Luka could kill you 1-on-1. We know that, right? And I said yesterday, if I'm the Celtics, Let Luka score 35. Just don't let the other guys go off. You can't do that against the Celtics. The difference is the Celtics have a much deeper offensive repertoire, not only, from a shot profile and versatility aspect, but also from a talent aspect. If you go full throttle, Tom Werner, shout out, to try to stop Tatum, what are you going to do against Brown? What are you going to do against Holiday? What are you going to do against White? If Porzingis is out there, what are you going to do against Porzingis? So you can't go all out, right? So the Celtics, offensively, if Tatum is making these shots, Dallas, I don't think, has any answer for it. And then if you force Tatum, the playmaker, to come out, he's going to hurt you. Because the Celtics are going to force. Don't get it twisted. The Celtics are going to force the switch. They're going to force Luka to defend Jason Tatum. They are going to force Luka to defend Jaylen Brown. They are going to force Kyrie Irving to play both those guys. They are going to force those switches. And if the Celtics force Luka to play against Tatum, guess what? Dallas is going to have to double, even though they don't want to, because they don't want Luka having to defend Tatum for 25, 30 possessions a game, or however many the Celtics can get that matchup on. So as soon as you see that Luka versus Tatum matchup, Dallas is sending an extra guy. And then that opens the door for Tatum to create for his teammates. It opens the door for a lot of different opportunities 4-on-3. That's why the Celtics will attack Luka. They are going to attack him defensively. They are going to wear him down. Luke is going to have to deal with Derek White's quickness. He's going to have to deal with JB and JT's overall offensive game and play strength. He's going to have to deal with post-ups against Porzingis and or Al. Make him work. And also make Kyrie Irving work. Every time Kyrie Irving is defending Jrue Holiday, I want Jrue Holiday down in the paint posting up. I want Holiday posting up. I want Tatum and Brown on switches and cross matches if you run with the basketball. I want Tatum and Brown to force Irving down in the paint because Irving has no chance to stop either of those guys down in the paint. He doesn't have a chance to stop, I don't think, Jrue Holiday when Holiday posts. Let's not even talk about Porzingis. And Dallas's defense, they are good at rim protection, but they are not very good at defending post-ups. So let's keep an eye on that. When the Celtics get a switch that they like, I would not be surprised if you see many times throughout a game that Celtic getting down into the paint. Not so much against Luka unless it's Porzingis or Al, because Luka is big. He is physical, right? But if you see Kyrie, if you see even Derek Jones Jr., if you see those guys getting stuck with more, with bigger and more physical Celtics players, Celtics are going to get down in that paint and they're going to post up. They should. Because Dallas is not very good dealing with post-ups. Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, those guys are shot blockers. They're rim protectors. On help defense, they will roll over and they will block a shot. But when you talk about 1 through 5 dealing with post-ups, it's an issue for Dallas. And Dallas is going to have to deal with that depth I talked about from the Celtics offense. It's something they haven't faced during this postseason. You had James Harden and Paul George in round 1. We all know James Harden shows up for like 1 out of every 3 playoff games. George has been a little in and out throughout his career. Kawhi was not himself for the game and a half of the 6 games that he played in that series. So defensively, they didn't have to deal with 4 or 5 guys that can burn you. Against Oklahoma City had a hell of a time shooting the basketball. They just had a bad series missing shots. We're talking wide open shots. We're talking open shots. And they don't have 4 or 5 guys that can shoot at a single time on the floor. Minnesota, it was Anthony Edwards or bust. Towns is not consistent. He melts down at times. So when Dallas is defending those three teams, they don't have to worry about 4 or 5 guys beating them. With the Celtics, they do. So if you're Dallas, you could hide Luka Doncic on McDaniels in the corner, right? You could hide Luka Doncic on some of the other OKC guys that aren't great shooters. You're not going to be able to hide Luka Doncic in this series, and you're not going to be able to hide Kyrie Irving. And Doncic and Irving, as much as we talk about them playing better defensively than they have in the past, they're still not great defenders. They're still not very good defenders against some of the best offensive players. Going against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum is a different world versus a Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those guys are not even close. They're not in the same universe as Brown and Tatum. So you're not going to be able to hide if you're Irving and Doncic in this series. And you're not going to be able to hide even if you're going against White and Holiday. Derek White and Drew Holiday could absolutely eat in this series. Derek White, when he takes at least 12 field goal attempts in a game, the Celtics were 28-6 during the regular season. They're 9-0 in the playoffs when White takes at least 12 shots. The Celtics are 33-1 this year when Drew Holiday scores 14-plus points. So you don't have to just worry about Tatum and Brown. You got to worry about everybody on the floor. Sam Hauser should be better in this series because Indiana doesn't, Dallas doesn't play as fast as Indiana. It's going to be a little bit more of a methodical pace, which fits Hauser much better. So Dallas does not have the convenience of, we only have to worry about one guy, maybe at the most 2 guys. And that changes the entire structure of the defense. Pace is going to be important. Celtics have to push the pace. Again, Dallas is very methodical. Luka is very methodical in his approach. Speed them up. If you run on offense, you're going to create a lot of cross matches, and Dallas is not good defending cross matches. I also want to see the Celtics go fast because if they start their offensive action early in the clock, that forces Dallas to try to come up with multiple stops, right? They have to make multiple rotations. They have to stay incredibly disciplined. So start your offensive action with 18 on the shot clock instead of 10 on the shot clock. Drive and kick, then drive and kick. You get the closeout, attack the closeout. Kick it out. Attack another closeout. But start your action early and have that pace so you force Dallas to have to stay disciplined all around the floor defensively. KP's impact, we've talked about this a little bit. If Lively switches onto the ball handler, Porzingis is going to post up the wings and guards, and he's going to kill him if he's healthy. Efficient buckets from Porzingis. Here are some numbers. The starting 5 with Porzingis. 120.3 points per 100 possessions. They scored 120.3 points per 100 possessions with Porzingis on the floor. They scored 118.5 with Al on the floor. So this offense is almost 2 points better per 100 possessions with Porzingis. Defensively, entirely different story. Defensively, with Porzingis, the Celtics gave up 109.4 points per 100 possessions. With Al, 115.8. So almost 6 more points per 100 possessions given up with Al on the floor than KP. That's why Porzingis is big in this series, if he can give you 20 to 25 minutes. John Hollinger wrote this at The Athletic. The Mavericks tend to concede pick and pop threes to centers. Another reason why KP would be huge. Because KP's ability to make threes, but also Porzingis' ability with the depth of threes. He's going to be, he can take a 26-footer, 27-footer and knock it down. That makes it very difficult against the pick and pop if Porzingis is 26, 27 feet away, because now the defender has to make up that extra space. You also have Porzingis in the spot-up game. He's out there offensively, he's spotting up. He's going to pull the defender towards him. If he's just standing there from 18 feet, the defender has to be with Porzingis 18 feet. If he's at 25 feet, if he's not involved in the pick and roll action, and you just have Porzingis spotting up, guess what? His defender has to stay right there with Porzingis, which creates driving lanes for Brown, Tatum, White, and Holiday. Jason Timpf at the volume pointed this out, that Porzingis' spot-up game causes almost more issues than his pick-and-pop game. Opposing bigs have to honor him. Expect lots of threes in this series. If you don't like lots of threes, don't watch the finals. Boston was number 1 in catch and shoot threes. Well, scratch that. Hold on before we get ahead. Celtics were number 1 in three-pointers made. Dallas was number 3 in three-pointers made this year. Boston was number 1 in the NBA in three-point attempts. Dallas was number 3 in the NBA in three-point attempts. Now, Dallas has taken less threes since the trade deadline because they changed their team structure, right? They brought in bigger players. But they will still take a good amount of threes. And the Celtics, I think, are going to take a ton of threes in this series. The difference is catch and shoot threes. Boston, number 1 in the NBA in catch and shoot threes. Dallas was 20th in the league. We know that Jason Tatum loves pull-ups, but so does Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic loves pull-ups. He loves difficult shots. He settles an awful lot, especially from 3. In the Mavs, they've had some three-point luck in the playoffs. Michael Pina in the ringer, he went through this. Oklahoma City did not shoot well at all compared to how they shot during the year. Lou Dort especially stunk from 3. Giddey can't throw it in the ocean. You don't even have to play Giddey beyond 15 feet. Chet Holmgren couldn't make a shot. Holmgren shot 6 for 27 from three-point land with the pick and pop after Holmgren had been really good in the pick and pop all year long. He fell off a cliff. This could be all about 3s versus 2s. Dallas's defense has been very good in the paint, again, because they have those rim protectors. Teams are shooting less than 60% at the rim in the playoffs. Great rim protection. This could be the Celtics taking 40, 45 threes a game and trying to make it as tough as possible for Luka and Kyrie to hit mid-range jump shots and step back tough contested threes. So it goes back to the math, which Joe Mazzulla has talked about a ton. Don't overlook the free throw margin. Dallas does not shoot a ton of free throws. The Celtics do not foul a ton. So that could be a difference maker. The Celtics should have more free throws attempted than Dallas in this series, therefore should make more free throws than Dallas makes in this series. And every little margin counts. If the Celtics play right on the offensive side of the ball, if they approach things the right way, they will score points against Dallas. They will score a good amount of points against the Mavericks defense if they play right. Like, comment, subscribe. Doesn't cost you a cent. Always appreciate you when you throw a comment out there, when you hit that thumbs up on YouTube, when you subscribe, rate and review at Spotify and Apple Pods as well. That'll do it for today. Back tomorrow. We're going to have a NBA Finals prediction show tomorrow morning. Maybe mix in a little bit of Patriots, but NBA Finals Game 1 tomorrow night. I will give you my prediction. Until then, be well. It's the Nick Cattle Show.